30 of us on. I think we're expecting a few more people. We're pretty close to who's going to be here, I think. So good morning to everybody. Welcome to our 12th and final Saturday of our Summer of Solidarity series. And today, very excited, we're going to be talking about environmental justice. Something that actually for us as a network in Wisdom is something we haven't done as much of as we'd like to, and hopefully this is going to be a boost to get us more involved. Really, clearly it's something terribly important. Before we get started, just a couple of things I want to ask you. When you're not speaking, if you could be sure to keep yourself on mute, just to be sure to get too much background noise. And right now, if you want, and don't get freaked out by this if it's hard for you, but if you could change your name so that if you'd like that you could put your pronouns that you prefer to be called by, and also they'll put where you're from, just to give people an idea, just as people kind of look around, they know what part of the state different people are coming from. So,
I don't know how to do that on my iPad.
Okay, anybody with an iPad want to tell us how it's done? Okay, Marcia.
Yeah, go to participants. I finally figured this, got help. Go to participants and click on your name, and it should drop down a menu that says rename.
All right. So again, it's not the end of the world if you don't do it. It's just a little bit of help for us to have a sense of who is where. So very pleased, we're going to have people from all around the state, not all around the state, but many parts of the state, talking to us today to kind of have a sense of some of the work being done in the area of environmental justice. And then we're going to have some chance to interact with each other. And at the end, kind of learn how we can kind of carry this movement forward in the future. So without further ado, and I'll let him introduce everybody else, I will pass the ball to my colleague, Bill Van Lopik, who is the lead organizer for Esther in Appleton.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many people that are interested in these topics. As David said, environmental justice is kind of new for Wisdom, but not necessarily new at all for some of the people on our call today who will be speaking. So we have representatives from, and they'll each have a chance to talk about what they're doing in their specific affiliate. Casey Hicks is here from the group in Joshua. Guy Ryder represents Minneconaugham. Sue Waits represents the group in Jonah. And Dan Barth, who will be joining us a little bit later, represents the group in Naomi. And then Jessica Hansen and Terry Dawson represent the group with Esther. These are the groups that have regularly scheduled environmental justice meetings every month. So they'll be talking about what they're doing and then hopefully what we can do at the end. Can we do it as a statewide level? So before we get with Casey would be first, we just want to take 5 minutes or so just to break out into groups to tell people, introduce yourself to people, and maybe just a word or two what brings you to this seminar today. So we'll do that for 5 minutes and then we'll get into the presentation. Okay.
I did forget, by the way, earlier to announce something, and that is that we do record these sessions, but we do not record the small groups. Okay, so what you say in your small group stays in your small group, but what you say in the big group stays on the website forever. So just so you know that. And again, I want to remind everybody, if you're not speaking, to please keep yourself on mute. Okay.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you had a chance to at least get to know a few other people and what brings them there to the table this morning. So to begin our presentations, I would like to begin with Casey. Casey Hicks is with us, and he has been the facilitator of the Joshua Task Force and have been doing things for the last few years. So Casey, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Casey. My full-time job is actually Northeast organizer with Wisconsin Conservation Voters. I've been working with them for 2 years now. If that name's unfamiliar to you, it's because we changed it about 2 years ago. We used to be Wisconsin League of Conservation Voters, so you might be more familiar with that. But we just went through a rebranding process. But anyway, I've been a participant with Joshua for about 2 years now, and my role as an organizer with WCV, and was working with Rachel Westenberg for quite a while, and partnering with her and Joshua on some shared campaigns that we had between the both of us since 2018. And then Rachel is such an amazing and awesome organizer that other people wanted her talents, and back in February, she went to go work for We All Rise African American Resource Center, which is a really great organization as well, based up in Green Bay. I just really recommend checking them out and even donating to them, because they're fulfilling a really, really important need right now for the community up in Green Bay. Anyway, Rachel left. She's doing really great work with them now. And after that, I took over being the facilitator for the last about 6 months now, ever since March. And we've been just basically meeting over Zoom like we all are right now, which has made things a little bit difficult, but nonetheless, we've still been able to get some progress on some of our main campaigns. And our group has been, we've focused on a few different campaigns over the last few years that have been pretty consistent in terms of urging local governments to commit to 100% clean energy. Before that, we worked on a resolution for Brown County for them to basically say that they didn't want the Back 40 mine to be built along the Menominee River further up north, because it would have affected us in Green Bay, because an open pit sulfide mine right on the Menominee River is very, very, very almost guaranteed and very likely to actually pollute it. And I know Guy's going to be talking about that later, so he can explain more, but we were very concerned about that and got a resolution passed for Brown County. But after that, we really kind of dug in to working on clean energy work at the local level. And the reason why is because there's clearly no action happening at the federal level, at least for the last 4 years. There hasn't been any action. In many cases, there's actually been rollbacks of work that was done underneath the Obama administration to get us towards a cleaner economy and a cleaner future, and to combat climate change. At the state level, we weren't seeing much happening as well over the last 10 years. And now we have a governor and administration that is certainly more friendly to clean energy and combating climate change at the state level. But we still have a state legislature that is pretty much dead set on not working on that. They have other priorities. And so with all of those circumstances at the federal and state level, we decided that we wanted to focus at the local level on getting clean energy and climate policies passed. And so 2 years ago, we started off with the city of Green Bay. And to give you a little bit of context before that, the city of Green Bay had pretty much just kind of like a sustainability committee that met very, very shortly. It was less of a committee, it was more of a task force that had a specific time and date that they were going to end on. And they did. They got some stuff done. This was back in, I think, like 2008 to 2010. But since then, the city hadn't been really working on a whole lot. And so at the time, I was not the organizer until about midway through this campaign. But Seth Hoffmeister, if some of you know him, up in the Green Bay area, used to have my position. Him and Rachel got together along with the Joshua Environmental Justice Task Force and decided that they wanted to pass a sustainability commission, a permanent one, in the city of Green Bay. And so this theme is going to run through the campaigns I'll talk briefly about in a moment here, but basically when they started out, they had to do a few different things. One, they had to establish the why. Why is it important that they wanted to create the Sustainability Commission? Well, the reason why is because the commission would be able to work long-term towards separate goals that they could set up for the city, such as reaching 100% clean energy by a certain date, creating a plan to actually reach that type of goal, and then continually being that, depending on who's in the administration, right, being a thorn in the side of someone or being some positive encouragement for the city to take active steps towards carbon neutrality. And so that was the why. Then we had to establish and find a team of people, which we basically, you can break up into people who are just really passionate about whatever issue you're working on. And so we had a smaller group. It was Rachel, Seth, eventually myself, and a few other members of the task force who at each meeting, we were just breaking up different roles and responsibilities for what we were going to do. Thinking about doing a campaign like this, you can get really specific and assign specific titles to people, such as communication manager or like member outreach, if you're utilizing some of Wisdom's lists or your specific groups list for reaching out to your members, or just kind of like a general secretary to take notes at meetings and stuff like that. That can be, kind of figured out on an ad hoc basis on who's going to take what responsibility and how they're going to do it. But I'd say the single most important, not the single most important role, but one of the most important roles that we had in our team was having a legislative champion, basically, or a local elected champion. And for us at the city level, that was Randy Scannell. He is a longtime city council member for the city of Green Bay, and really knew like the ins and outs of how the committee process worked in Green Bay, and then just what the power situation was like on the city council, right? Who influences who on the city council, who votes with who, and just basically how can you leverage the power that you have with your champion and the relationships that they have at the city council to get done what you need to get done. And so Randy was really indispensable with that. We probably would not have gotten as far as we did with our Sustainability Commission without his help and knowledge. And so basically from there, we got to work. We had decided what we were going to do, why we were doing it. We had a team of people. And then it was just starting to do outreach and starting to actually talk to city council members and talk to members of the community and get the word out that we were trying to pass the Sustainability Commission in Green Bay. And so it was about, this went really fast, by the way. And I just want to say, normally work like this can take a year at least or more. The group before I came on had been working on this for about 2 months, and then we worked on it for about a month and a half again after that. So we were on a really expedited and really quick line, which normally would not happen. The campaigns that we're working on currently, we've been working on for a year and a half. So it's actually holding true to that rule. But anyway, we'd established who we were, what we were trying to do, and we were just reaching out to the community. A lot of that community outreach basically came in the form of showing up to events like the March for Science back in May of 2018. We had a booth and a table set up providing information about the Sustainability Commission that we wanted to pass and what would it do, why is it good for Green Bay, and just talking to people personally and doing some of that grassroots organizing of meeting with people face to face, and then making sure that they were leaving with a call to action. And that call to action was for them to email or give a phone call to their city council member, just saying that they supported the Sustainability Commission. People who were really enthusiastic and really excited, we took down their information and we plugged them in to a higher level action. If you've ever heard of it, there's something called the ladder of engagement, which can look different for a different organization or a different campaign. But you've always kind of got different rungs of the ladder on actions and what actions you're trying to get people to take. They might start off by just giving a phone call to their city council member. But if they're really excited and passionate, you might have them call other people to do the same thing. Or if they do that and they love it, or maybe it's not the thing for them, we ask them to provide testimony at the upcoming committee meetings and city council meetings. And so we were doing that for about a month. We were calling people with our membership list from Wisconsin conservation voters, and Rachel was reaching out to her Joshua members. Joshua members were reaching out to their friends and family, encouraging them to do the same thing. And so by the time the Sustainability Commission policy actually made it to the full city council, we had generated hundreds of phone calls to the city council and the city council members' phones, and send dozens and dozens of emails to their inboxes supporting this. And then when it came to the actual vote, we made sure that we brought all of our people with us, everyone who had been supporting us throughout that entire process, showed up at the city council meeting, and we just had one single person deliver testimony. You don't have to necessarily do it that way. We could have had everyone just spend the next hour or 2 hours giving testimony individually. But what we chose to do is have Seth Hoffmeister share testimony, and then he just motioned to the back to show that we had a whole group of people, a dozen people there at the meeting, all in support of this Sustainability Commission. And it passed unanimously. So we put in a lot of work for it, made a lot of phone calls, educated a lot of people in the community, and it paid off by a unanimous decision. And I'd say that was just the beginning of the work. Since then, we've been doing still a lot of hard work. And before that, we tried to make sure that we were going to have a strong agenda set up for this commission to take up right away, along with some goals, things that we wanted to pass in the first couple meetings. And so lucky enough, Seth Hoffmeister, who'd worked on the campaign, is now my boss, ended up becoming the chair of the Sustainability Commission, which was really beneficial because we had someone who knew the ins and outs of how it was created and had that strong agenda that we developed beforehand, who was going to implement it. And that led to the city of Green Bay committing to 100% clean energy by 2050 and carbon neutrality by that same time, because they passed a work plan that created that goal, and it was again passed by the city council. Albeit I don't think all the city council members knew that that goal was was actually in the policy. So it passed unanimously, but I think if some of them had read it a little bit more closely, there might have been some consternation, but there wasn't, so we were good. And since then, we've been taking up more work with local governments, kind of repeating the same process of developing our why, and finding our group of people, finding our local elected champion, and then doing the grassroots organizing work to get a policy passed. And so we've been focusing mainly in the last couple campaigns on 100% clean energy resolutions, which is something that a lot of municipalities across the state have been doing. But for us specifically in the last couple of years, we've focused on Green Bay Area Public School District, which became the third school district in the state back in March to commit to 100% clean energy and carbon neutrality by that time. And they arguably passed the most comprehensive resolution for a school district in the state. And then we've been working on passing a similar resolution for Brown County now for about 1.5 years. That one has not been as easy of a process. It's been a little bit more of deciding what we were going to do at first, because the county board for Brown County is very large. There's 26 members on it. Not that this always entirely matters, but when it comes to clean energy, it matters a little bit more. The board is a tad more conservative than some other boards might be, and so there are a lot more folks to convince about the fiscal benefits of clean energy, and we've been doing that for the last year. And this campaign has been much longer than the Green Bay one, which was pretty smooth in comparison. The last year we've went through all the same processes that we did for the city council, but it's been a lot more meeting individually with county board supervisors and spending the time with them to educate them about clean energy and let them know what other local governments have been doing to commit to clean energy and how they're reaching their goals. So it's taken more time, and now finally in the last 6 months since April, things have really picked up steam. Part of that is because we had a county board election here, and we had some changes along county board membership, which made it much more fertile ground for actually getting a resolution passed. And at this point, we have met multiple times. We actually had our resolution co-written with citizens. We all sat down with some supervisors and some members of ours and some community members and just sat in a Zoom room like this and hammered out a clean energy resolution. And it's gone through 4 different drafts at this point, so it's not quite the same one that we had when we first started. It's not quite as far reaching as we'd like it to be, but it's a really great step and a really good start. And I think having that meeting, those few meetings that we had with community members where we were all writing it by committee, gave a lot more ownership to people, and therefore they've been really engaged, much more engaged with this campaign because they had a part in actually creating the policy. And so since then, our tactics have updated a little bit from 2018. We've been doing all the same stuff of reaching out to county supervisors, calling them, sending emails into them. But we've gotten a little bit more sophisticated with it because we have access to some more technology and resources than we did in 2018. And particularly, we've been able to, and I should mention, COVID-19 has really changed how we're operating as well, right? Because we can't actually go and testify in person. We've been really just getting folks to send in public comments as much as possible through email, but then we've also been utilizing video. We've had a group of people all film just 30 to 40 seconds of testimony saying why they support 100% clean energy. And we're taking all that testimony and combining it into one 3 to 4 minute video with multiple people all saying they support it. And we're going to release that into the public so we can generate I'm totally missing my word here. So we can generate some support out in the community, but then also we're sharing that with county supervisors so we can actually have them put a face to the testimony and they're not just receiving an email, and they can see that real people are supporting this, since we don't want to put people in a situation where they might be exposed to COVID-19 by going to an in-person meeting. So that's really been indispensable for us. Along with, again, just having like really strong champions in the county board. We have 2 of them at this time. You don't necessarily have to have 1. You could have 2, 3, 4, 5, however many people you think are really passionate and can help you navigate the process. And at this moment in time, we're still waiting for the county resolution to pass the full board. Next Tuesday, it has to go through committee, and it's gone to committee 3 times now and has had to be rewritten. So some advice there is just to be patient, work with folks through issues and challenges that they're having. If they're a county supervisor, compromising with them and figuring out, where can we meet in the middle? And then if you can't meet in the middle on certain things, providing them education to hopefully get them onto your side. And so in September, hopefully this resolution makes it through next week. We've got quite a bit of testimony and quite a few emails and phone calls that we've made to county supervisors. And we've made a pretty big stink about it in the public here as well. Hopefully it passes in September. We've done the work to make sure that it does. And then from there, hopefully Brown County's at 100% clean energy. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. I don't know if we have time for questions or anything, David.
I think, yeah, a little bit later we'll have our breakout. But thank you very much. If I could
suggest, people could also use the chat area if you've got kind of specific questions that you want to do. I also just want to say, by the way, when we have a single speaker like this, you can use the speaker view. You know, so sometimes, so that instead of seeing 25 boxes, you actually get a big picture just of the speaker. Usually you can find that in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. I just say that because our next speaker is kind of renowned for being a good-looking guy. So.
Yes. Yes, so I'm happy to introduce Aniquet, Guy Ryder. I've known him, man, I was just thinking about 15 years now, so probably more than anybody else on this call. So I'm really privileged to have him join us. So, and talk about Mini-Conachem and what they're doing. So Guy, you want to take it away?
Yeah, po so. Aniquet Nitakem, Wapasha Nitotam Kashitna Nitski Wakin, Iwana Nitskis Mauni Wake Osaitua. So I just introduced myself in our beautiful sacred Menominee language. It's true that Aniquet roughly translates to, you know, handsome, good-looking, brilliant, amazing, and all those things. Other people will say other things if you look it up. It might be different, but that's what I was saying. No, I'm just kidding. It actually means cloudy skies, which you can see in the back behind me here. So I'm the executive director of Mini-Conachem, located here on the Menominee Indian Reservation. We've been a organization for officially, I think, for probably about like 3 or 4 years, like a nonprofit, but we've met for many years, for probably like 9 or closer to 10 years. But one of the things I just wanted to just talk a little bit about, like how I kind of got into environmentalism. I mean, not only just like as an indigenous person and born into this this nation that takes environmentalism very serious, and it's, you know, instilled in us as kids to always recognize nature and recognize what the animals and the roles that we play. But when I was a kid, I remember, some of you are probably old enough to remember the Exxon, the Crandon mine, sulfide mine that they were doing up by Crandon, Wisconsin here. You know, our tribe was very instrumental in fighting against that mine. I think it was like maybe in 94, 95 is when we actually won that battle. So I was around like 14, 15, around that age. But I remember, you know, taking part in the walks and all the things that they did. And we had some really strong environmental leaders at that time that were leading that. But the thing that I remember the most about it was that they took a very spiritual approach to it. They brought kind of to the light, like, our relationship with the earth, you know, and led with that. And I think it was awesome. You know, as a kid, I was just proud of being Indian and proud of being Menominee and all those things. So fast forward a couple of years, and we'll probably a little bit more in a couple of years, there is a potential project by the name of Back 40 mine, which is located on the Menominee River. The Menominee River creates the natural border in between Wisconsin and upper Michigan. They call that river the Menominee River because it's named after us as a Menominee Nation. Our creation story goes back to the mouth of that river, that we've come from that river. They're trying to put this sulfide mine on the Michigan side of the river, but we've been very, very active in it and been, you know, challenging them on every step of the way so far. And it's been probably about, it's been, I would say, about 9 years that we've been actively involved. So if you want to learn more about the Back 40 mine, you're just going to have to ask grandfather Google, and he'll tell you all that you need to know about the Back 40 mine. So I don't want to take up a lot of time talking about that, or even sulfide mine and how dirty and just how devastating it is to an environment. You can look all that up and figure that out. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about like what our approach was, because this is now, you know, 20 some years or almost 30 years past the Crandon mine, and those environmental leaders that were once there for the Crandon mine are no longer here. And we were scrambling to figure out like, well, what do we do? And nothing was written down, or if it was locked away somewhere and in the tribe's basement and their where they keep their files. So it was, I mean, what do you do as a community? What do you do as somebody that's trying to fight against a multi-million-dollar company? So the first thing I did is when I heard, I went up to one of our traditional communities here on the reservation, up in Zor, and I sat down with one of my uncles, and I was talking to him about just what was happening, just what I found out about this mine, and I was telling him that somebody should be writing letters, like somebody should be going to these meetings, somebody should be making sure the tribe is informed, and somebody should do this and somebody should do that. And he listened to me and let me go on and on about it. And after I was done, he looked me in my eye and he said, "Well, you're somebody." And I thought, "Oh man, that's true. I am somebody. All right, so I have to do something." So what I just started to do was to go anywhere where there was gatherings of people, and I made up these very crude flyers and fact sheets, is everything I could find on the internet, and sat down and started to inform people about this project. And more and more people were just in the same boat as I was, is like, man, this is how dangerous this is. This mine is only 147 feet from the Menominee River, and they're planning also to like dig under the river. It was just a bad project, and it is a bad project. So we started to do that, got the tribe involved, and then we started to just grow and grow and grow, spreading the word out and trying to figure out what to do. But the most important thing I think that we did is when we started to look back at what they did in Crandon and in other fights that were successful. It was a lot of it was led with spirit. A lot of it was led with the heart. And we thought like, well, let's do that. Let's start right there, whatever it is we do. And so what we decided was that we wanted to do a sacred water walk, and we wanted to walk from our reservation here up to that mine site. And it was 126 miles. We were able to accomplish it in 3 days. Our grandmother, Josephine Mandaman, who is no longer here, she passed away I think about a year and a half ago now. She is the grandmother of the water walks that when you see them, she's the one that started those. She walked around all 5 Great Lakes. We've done many walks with her. We've walked from the Pacific Ocean, from the Atlantic Ocean. We've walked from the Gulf of Mexico, from the Arctic Ocean. We've walked the Mississippi River. We walked around Lake Winnebago. Just lots of things like that. I wasn't involved in all of them, but there was parts where I walked in most of them. She took an approach that was closer to our culture. She was telling us and teaching us about carrying this water in a copper vessel. And it's not a protest. It's about our intent and letting our beautiful Mother Earth know that what we're willing to do for it. So she in our lodge, it's explained to us that the women have the right, or have the role of speaking up for the water, because they have that beautiful gift of bringing life, and they carry that water when they're bringing life into this world, and that the men have the role of taking care of the fire. So in this water walk, we had a huge gathering down here at a sacred place on our reservation called Kashina Falls. It's a very important cultural landmark to us. And we started there, and Grandma Josephine and the ladies that were involved at the time went down to the water. We performed a ceremony, and they scooped that water up. And they started to carry that kettle, and us men supported them. We stepped every which way. And for anybody that's ever walked like 126 miles, or even like 5 miles, it's like, holy man. My body's kind of built for like more rolling downhill. I think I'm better at that than I would be at walking long distances. So after like the first day of walking, it was just like, holy smokes, this is, what did I get myself into? But Grandma Josephine had seen, obviously, the tiredness on my face and the way I was acting, and she's like, nephew, I want you to get into my car. She said, I want to talk to you. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble now. But I sat in the back, and she said, you know what, nephew? She said, when you're out there walking, she said, I want you to remember that you're out there walking for all those ones that no longer can get up here and walk. She said, I want you to remember that. She said, I don't want you to walk on that road. She said, don't walk on that road. Walk on the earth. She said, have communication with that earth. She always told us, this isn't a protest. We're not going to carry signs. We're going to walk with our mother, and that's what we're going to do. So we started that walk, and, I was in the back, and she was talking, and she says, you know what, nephew, I want you to also to think about like all those descendants that are coming, all those ones that are waiting their time to come to this earth. She said, you're walking for them. She said, all those animals and all those plants. She said, all those ones that can't come to these meetings and can't submit comments on a deadline and can't jump on a Zoom call. She said, all those ones, you're walking for them. And she said, for those ones that are handicapped, maybe they're in prison right now or in jail. She says, you're walking for them. And after about like a 15 to 20 minute, speech like that, I was like, all right, like that's a wicked guilt trip, and I'll walk from here to London if I have to. But I'm joking, of course. But one of the best things she ever told me, and before I got out of her car, she had said, you know what, nephew? She said, I always want you to remember this. And she said, I want you to be like water. And she said, when you look at water, she said, when it stops, she said, it starts to grow bacteria in it, and it starts to get dirty. She said, I want you to always be like water. And I really took that to heart. I really thought about that, and I thought the way in which we understand ourselves as Indigenous people is emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. And I thought in my life, like, where in my lives am I not being like water? Where am I stagnant? Because I was stagnant in some areas. And I guess maybe in a sense that she knew what was coming in some ways. Because after that walk, it kind of like, just really, really sprung a lot of things. Started to travel all over the country, started to lobby, in Washington, and I don't know how many countless meetings we went to, and I went to, and spent a lot of time on the road. A lot of times it was by myself, and I was, spending money out of my own pocket. And I don't mean to have anybody feel sorry for me. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, there's a lot of time away from my family. And I know, looking back now, it caused a lot of strain on my partner and our kids. And there were times where, I felt like just, this ain't worth it. Like I'm spending all my time away from my family, and I'm giving everything I can give. And then I would hear her voice in my head, and to keep going, to remember why you're doing this. And it would give me strength to keep going. And I really appreciate that she did that for me. It's something I'll probably take to my grave, and hopefully I can pass it down to my kids, that they'll take that bit of wisdom, let that guide them in their life. And I offer it here to you too, for your ears that are listening to this. But the part of that walk too that was really important for us is we walked up the Menominee River. That was part of the journey. And it just so happened that when we walked up that river, that the sturgeon in Lake Michigan were making their swim up that river at the same time. And as we were walking along that river, we could see them floating or swimming, from time to time they would come out. And it was almost as if like they recognized what we were doing. And it was like to me, it was like them saying, yeah, keep going, encouraging us, keep walking, don't give up, those kind of things. And it kind of put a pep in everybody's step. And it was incredible. Sturgeon are kind of like salmon in a sense that they go back to their home river to spawn. And the 80% of the spawning adult sturgeon in Lake Michigan use the Menominee River. So it's so very, very, very important, this river. And we walked all the way up to the mine site, and we performed another ceremony. And after we were all done, we had, we had multiple generations walking with us. There was a time where it was fourth graders that were from our tribal school here leading us, and it was all us older generations and older back behind them, and they were carrying that water and that staff, and it was a sight to see. But after it was all done, I remember I had talked to one of our elders here in the community, and I was telling him about some of the things that really meant a lot to me. And he said, you know what, nephew, he said, a long time ago in our creation story as Menominee people, so it says that very first Menominee came out of the earth there at the mouth of the Menominee River, and it walked up that river, and it called to its brothers and sisters, and it called to all the other clan members, the eagle and the moose, the crane, the wolf, called to all those, the bear did, and formed our tribe. And he said, you know what, nephew, he said, those many years ago, he said, when that creation story began, that bear came out of that earth there and walked for us. And he said, now you fast forward to this time and place that now we got to walk for it. And I always felt that in my heart, trying to figure out, like what to do, and not try to control things, but allow spirit to be involved and spirit to guide as much as we could. So after all that was done, we started to think about, like, okay, so now what do we do? We did this walk, and what's next? And we started to think about, like, well, what's the best thing that we can do, or like, what do we have that nobody else has got? What is the thing that, like, this multi-million-dollar company isn't going to see us and learn our strategies? So we thought, well, the best thing that we can do is be ourselves, use our own culture, our own oral histories, because nobody ever took the time to learn who we are. So we have that stuff, and we have these thousands-year-old stories. So just like in that creation story where the bear called out to his brothers and sisters, we started to put together this Menominee River speaking tour. And I've been all over Wisconsin and all over the country with that tour, talking to people and trying to get them to understand what's at risk if this project goes through. So we kind of did that, and then we also looked at, like, well, what are some other things that we could do, and looking at, like, our greatest teacher is our beautiful Mother Earth. She is always talking to us. She's always in communication with us. When this call is done, or whenever we're apart here, if you just go outside and if you just be quiet and you listen with your heart and your ears, you'll see that Mother Earth is always talking to us, always trying to help us, always showing us that we're connected. And she'll speak through the birds, she'll speak through the wind, she'll speak through those trees rustling. That's her voice. And we try to understand, we try to realize that, like, we're connected with her, we are from her, and we're going to do everything we can to do whatever we need to protect our beautiful Earth. So we started to look at, like, animals, and some of you that know what that killdeer, that little bird is, like, how does it protect its nest? Like, how does it protect its home? And if you ever see those killdeer, if you ever get close to their nest, they'll come down and they'll, like, walk in front of you, and they'll try to, like, get you to chase them, and then they'll lead you away from their nest. And I thought, like, man, what an amazing strategy that is, because if that strategy didn't work, that little bird wouldn't be here. So obviously it works. So how do we take that strategy and apply it to what we're doing right now, and how is it able to help us in protecting our Earth? So we started to look at those things too, and try to pay attention to some of those things. We did one of the things too I wanted to just bring up here is also that everybody, you guys understand what we've been through as a community, from forced relocation to the boarding school eras, and nothing short of genocide as a people. So we were able to go through that and come out the other side at least somewhat intact as a human being. And you know, when you think about that, you think like, how could this community go through this? How could it go through this and come outside and still be somewhat intact? And to me, that's an incredible strength, incredible resilience. So whatever they're doing, that community's doing, like let's do that. Let's build our foundation on that strength. Let's build our foundation on that resilience, because that's incredibly strong. You know, that's kind of the strategy we had taken, and we wanted to remind our people, especially here on the reservation. It's like, it's not true what they say about us. It's somebody else's version of what they think we are, but they don't know nothing. You know, they don't know us. They never took the time to understand who we were or even where we come from. So we wanted to share that with people and let people understand that we should always, you know, like lead with our heart. And the natural world is so important to us that, you know, it's not about like sometimes going to these meetings and writing all these comments. Like, you got to do a lot of that stupid stuff, and you got to it's just part of it, you know. It's just the process, and it gets frustrating because, you know, you hit so many walls, and it's just, it gets frustrating. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is sometimes we need to just like go outside, and there's a place somewhere out there that you connect with the earth, that just you do. It hasn't had nothing to do with anyone else. And if we just take that time to go out to that place, wherever that place is, and we just sit and listen to the earth, and we have that connection, we feel her under our feet, we feel her in the wind, you know, and we sit there, and it's about that connection that's so important. Because I think that in a lot of ways our people have lost that. They only see our earth as property. They don't see it as a part of us. And you know, the reality is that without the earth, we don't exist. We can exist without these stupid laws and rules and all these things that they have in place, but we can't exist without the earth. And it's so very, very important. And we've always tried to get people in all our talks and all the things that we did to remember that, to remember your connection with this beautiful, beautiful earth. And it's not about like me telling you do this, do that or not. It's like about, what do you feel? You know in your heart what you feel when you're in that spot, whatever that spot is, how it makes you feel. So we've started to try to change that narrative and just get people to slow down a little bit and understand that. But like I said before, you know, it's it's so very much going to meetings and writing comments and trying to figure out these crazy laws and lobbying, talking to senators that stay on talking points that, oh my God, it can just get frustrating. So there's a few things that I learned from doing that, and we've lobbied federally and in the state and also locally. But couple things that I learned there is one, common sense isn't so common. And one of the other big things I've learned is you're never going to change somebody's mind who's being paid not to. I don't care what you do, what you say, it just isn't going to happen. And we've done a lot of that. So that's kind of like led me in many different directions and been involved in many fights. And one of the things I wanted to say too was just that, you know, it's about like that change of changing the way you perceive things and see things. You know, during this fight this time, at one of these talks I was at, I can't remember exactly where I was, this young girl came up to me after I was done, and she had this beautiful artwork. And this artwork was it was like gravestones, but it had every mine like in the world on these gravestones, and it had like facts and things on it, like of how many acres it killed and all these things, right? And it was really beautiful. It really was. And she's like, here, I want you to have this. This is something that I've been working on for a long time. And if you can use this, you know, please use it. And I was like, yeah, awesome, amazing, okay. So when I got back home here to the reservation, I gathered a couple of our elders up, and I was like, here, I want to, that were instrumental in this fight, the Back 40 mine. I was like, here, look at this beautiful artwork I have gotten. She, one of our elders, the very first thing they said was, you should tell that girl thank you, and it's beautiful, she said, but you should take it back to her, they said, because we don't want to celebrate death, we want to celebrate life. And I was like, dang, like it made me think about things in a different way. And I still have that poster. I haven't given it back to her, not because I'm not listening to my elders, but I just can't remember who she was. So if you're on this call, I have your poster, and I'll get it back to you anytime. It's like when you meet 1,000 people in a day, it's hard to keep faces and names all together, but she'll know I'm looking for her. But so kind of wrap this up a little bit. I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the things that we're also focusing on right now. It can get very daunting, and I know Casey knows and knows what I'm talking about when you're trying to be an advocate for our earth, and also when you're in these meetings, because it's so very much like foreign stuff, and it can, you got to have a thick skin, boy, to be in something like this, no doubt about it. And it takes a lot of doors being shut in your face just to maybe one being open. But it seems like every time that I've been involved in environmentalism, and we were involved in the Dakota Access Pipeline, the No DAPL fight, and many others, but that we want it to be a little bit more proactive. It seems like we're always reactive. It's always like the government or somebody does something, and now we got to scramble to try to figure out like how and are we going to do this. So we started to go down this road of focusing on the rights of nature, and it was a change of mind about like how right now nature is considered property, like I said before, and that it doesn't have no rights, and it's like up to the property owner to determine what is right for a water body or for the natural world. And we wanted to push back on that. We're like, man, there's so many things that are being done now in our world that are giving the rights of nature. People are recognizing that, yeah, these trees and this water and these animals have a right too. They may not be able to voice and understand a level that a human can, but they still communicate and they still talk and they still have the right to live the fullness of what Creator has created for all of us, and that we should do something for them. So what we did right away was the Menominee tribe recognized the rights of nature of the Menominee River. That was something that we got them to do. We're working on right now getting the tribe to put a constitutional amendment together to recognize the rights of nature on our reservation and all of our tribal lands. We have a bigger vision of, we want to definitely, and when I say we, I'm working with a lady by the name of Mari Margill, she used to work at Community Environmental Law Firm, CELDF.org, I believe it is. They're from Seattle, and they do lots of rights of nature everywhere. But we wanted to try, this has been tried before, where we try to get our state to do a state amendment to recognize the rights of nature. But it just it didn't work, because I don't think that we had like the people behind it at the time, and it kind of just fell by the wayside. But we wanted to look at it again, and we wanted to just start with like every county in the state of Wisconsin to recognize the rights of nature. And it could be a resolution, or it could be something very simple, or it could be, ultimately we want it to be law, but just to start out the process. And then that like we start this proactive approach, that we start the culture of people in a way in which they see this natural world, that we can't just go out there and destroy a wetland, that are the lungs of a river. We can't just do that. That we gotta recognize that there's probably animals and species that lived in that woods for thousands of years, and you don't just get to go in there and do that to them, and display something like that. So we wanted to go around the state and get every county, and then after we did that, it'll make a really nice infographic, but that we would approach the state legislator to try to get a state amendment in where we would be able to have the rights of nature within law. And there's so much written out there. I mean, there's so many ways in which we could go about it. So that's the kind of like where we're at right now, where I'm at right now with that, with the rights of nature. But it's very important. You could again ask Grandfather Google for more information on what the rights of nature are. I know I sent Dr. Van Lopik, or you could even email me, and I can email you all the information that I have for examples. And there's so many other things that are happening around rights of nature. Like 2008, Ecuador was the first country to recognize the rights of nature for the Amazon River. Even in Colorado, the state constitutional amendment was passed there, recognizing the rights of nature. And there's others, like Lake Erie in Ohio. They've just recognized the rights of nature for Lake Erie. There was somebody I know that was working on like the rights of nature for all the Great Lakes at one time. But I think that I'm not sure where they're at with that yet, but I mean, that's something too to think about. But it's baby steps, of course. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm probably over my 20 minutes, and forgive me, Dr. V, but I wanted to just say that, yes, this work is hard. Yes, this work is serious work, but we gotta have fun too. We gotta have fun in it. And one thing that I know, for all of you guys that aren't familiar with us Indigenous people, if you're ever on a reservation, and this is my words of advice, if you find yourself on a reservation, you find yourself around Indian people, if none of them are teasing you, if no one is teasing you, there's something wrong. There is something wrong. So you need to find out, like start going to grandmas and aunties and trying to figure out like what in the heck is going on. But that's something, like in our community, where teasing is a term of endearment, like if they're teasing you, man, you're in like Flynn, it's all good. And, one of the things I just wanted to just mention with the Back 40 fight is that the company that's proposing this project is called Aquila Resources, and they put out this video on Facebook that said like how beautiful this project is, and it had each director of whatever their company was talking about it. So what we did is we grabbed that video before they were able to take it off, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen that cartoon called Finding Nemo. There's a part in that cartoon where those seagulls, they always go like mine if they ever see anything. So we took that audio and if this might be a little bit older crowd for this, but there used to be a cartoon called South Park, and they had these two Canadian characters called Terrence and Phillip, and like they cut their head in half, so like their whole head would be in half when they would talk. They were Canadian, right? Yes. So we overlapped, like we cut all those guys' heads in half, so when they talked, their head would do that. And any time that they mentioned mine in that video, we'd have everybody else's face appear, and they'd all go mine, and they ended up taking it off, their video off and everything. But it was so funny, I don't even care. I was just laughing just because I thought it was funny. But there's so much things like that, that you can do. And just because you got to go to a public hearing and things doesn't mean that you can't have fun and to think out of the box, to think about like some of the things that you can do that they aren't expecting or that will get laughs, because we have to laugh and have fun, because we should enjoy our time here on Earth just as much as we are protecting our Earth. We should definitely have fun too. So that's kind of my spiel, and I appreciate your time. I'm getting up this morning and doing this, and
okay. Well, Wennen, Guy, and I think you've brought a chuckle and smile to everybody's face this morning in someplace in your talks. So we really appreciate it. Why don't we take a few minutes to break up again, and then we'll charge right into just our last few presenters for the last. But if we take maybe 7 minutes or so, just to reflect about what Casey and Guy have talked about, and then we'll come back in. So just talk among your group. What was the impressions? What came out that you are interested in? Okay. So we're going to move on, and we might, if the rest of our speakers could just keep mindful of the time. We have about 45 minutes left. So we have Sue Waits from Jonah, and Dan Barth, and Terry Dawson, and Jessica Hansen from Esther. So Sue, you want to say something about what your group is doing there in Eau Claire?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. 2 wonderful presentations, so thank you for that. But here in Eau Claire, we have the Jonah group. We were for about a year, so we're still kind of forming and finding what our focus will be. We do have quite a few things going on the city council and the county level, as far as they've been progressive in passing quite a few measures there. So we're focusing more probably community education and so forth. We've got 3 initiatives, so to say. The first one is our Healthy Lawn Initiative. We have a subgroup of our Jonah Task Force that's looking at that, and they have set some goals of working with the city to try to receive a B city designation. There's a lot of steps that go in that, so that's kind of a long-reaching goal. They want to get to the point where and talk to the city about banning the use of conventional toxic pesticides on public spaces, working with the school district, and then doing a community education on, personal lawns and what your options are. So this is, like I said, an initiative that's just getting started on the healthy lawns and working with the city on that. So we hope to make some progress there. Then the other 2 areas are more in community education. And one would be in single-use plastics. We've talked to some other groups about that as well. We did have a big community forum planned on Earth Day, but that was canceled because of COVID. But we're really working on trying to do some community education on what we can each do to minimize our single-use plastics. And there's things going on at the state and federal level on that, so we're trying to connect with that. And then our third area, again, is more of a education, would be on composting. And the whole idea that to minimize food waste in the landfill, and having people recognize that about 35% of the landfill space is used with food waste. And we do have curbside composting available to us. And so it is an option for people, and trying to raise awareness in our community about that. So again, that's what we're working on. We're still getting started. And like I said, our strongest goals are in the healthy lawn, and then the other 2, we hope to really focus on education, and hopefully come next April during Earth Week, we can partner with some people and do that public forum again. So I guess that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Sue. If we have time at the end here, we can open it up for any questions that people may have, okay? So save your questions until the end for anything for Sue. All right, let's go to Dan Barth, who is with Naomi in the Wausau region. Dan?
Thank you. Oh, what an honor it is to be here. I think among so many people who recognize that when we walk upon the earth, we walk on hallowed ground. That's how I feel right now. I'm going to say that we are, our environmental task force is relatively young. I think we started up this year, but we're just charging ahead. We've picked a couple of primary issues to work on. climate change, and we're doing that in conjunction with a very large organization called the Citizens Climate Lobby, all about getting the federal government to pass legislation to put a fee on carbon emissions and return all the money collected to you and I. We think it's probably the most equitable and most earth justice oriented solution that we can come up with so far. So that's one of our efforts. The other effort is to get rid of the plastics that are so omnipresent in our shopping carts, in our homes, and in our world. And now finding out that it's present in our own bodies. It's kind of crazy that we're doing what we're doing to this planet and to life on this planet with plastics. So we're involved in that. I heard Earth Day mentioned just a little while ago. We also, we've been doing Earth Day, the Citizens Climate Lobby, and now Naomi too. We've been doing Earth Day for the past 3 years. We plant an Earth Day tree every year as part of our celebration. And this year we didn't do it because the virus was so new to us and because we were kind of all locked down a little bit. That would have been April 22nd. So we're doing Earth Day in September this year. And we're real excited about that because we're doing it. We always wanted to make it a multicultural event. And we have a gentleman, a Hmong gentleman from Wausau, who is a member of our County Board of Supervisors. He's going to dedicate the tree. And then we will have a Hmong shaman who will bless the tree. And we're really hoping that this will turn into, in the future, an event that will draw all of the cultures, many cultures in our area together to celebrate the earth. I'm going to ask David if he would play a short video that kind of lays it all out. We have a young organizer as part of Naomi. His name is T. Vang, and he is bringing us into the 21st century. And he's doing a great job of it. And this is his production, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Earth, the planet that has nurtured life for hundreds of millions of years, is under increasing threat from one of her own, us. Without giving thought to the consequences of our lifestyles, we have suddenly begun to realize that unintentionally, we are causing great harm to ourselves, our climate, and yes, the rich diversity of life that makes this such a special place. Naomi members know we are called to a new Earth consciousness, one that guides our decisions as consumers, and that makes us responsible and thoughtful co-creators of our planet's future. Our consciousness expands through ideas exchanged in our environmental task force. And as our consciousness grows, we know we must act. We are confronted with a growing climate crisis. By continuing to burn the fossil fuels we grew up with, we unhinge Earth's climate. Scientists warn us that hothouse Earth is on our time horizon if we don't transition to renewable energy now. Naomi has joined forces with the Citizens Climate Lobby to get the job done by advocating for federal climate legislation. We ask you to join us in this effort. We fully support renewable energy and electric transportation. Visit our action pages now and get involved. We have also become conscious of how dependent on plastic our lives have become and how damaging to life that plastic is. Plastic is forever. Only 10% of it actually gets recycled. The rest breaks down into tiny particles called microplastics that you and I and our precious children and grandchildren are ingesting in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. And the same is true for all Earth's creatures. We know we must stop using plastic. We offer cotton shopping bags, petitions to our legislators, and letters to our storekeepers. We welcome you to join us in this effort. Earth Day was first conceived by Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson in 1970. This year, our Earth Day celebration, traditionally on April 22nd, was postponed because of the coronavirus. Naomi and the Citizens Climate Lobby will plant our 4th Earth Day tree in September instead, and we'll have a short Zoom celebration to follow. We invite you to join us online. We'll let you know when soon. Our Earth consciousness is growing and will be enriched by your active participation. Let's make Wausau and Marathon County truly earth-friendly. By working together, we can. Earth, the planet.
Thank you. So that was kind of cool.
Thought to the.
Whoops. that will soon be on our website, and it's been a lot of fun, and I think that's for the sake of moving it along. I'm going to end my presentation with that. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, T. I know you're on the line here too. That was a great little video. So let's, like I said, we'll have a chance to ask more questions at the very end, depending on how much time we have. Now I'd like to switch it over to Terry. Terry and Jessica are co-facilitators of our emerging environmental justice group here in the Fox Valley. So Terry, you want to talk a little bit about what your group has been doing?
Sure, thanks, Bill. We are also a relatively new group. We've been meeting for just under a year. We started out by doing some brainstorming, planning kinds of activities. In February, we hosted a panel discussion to try to get a better idea of environmental justice issues as opposed to just concern for climate change. And we had a panel that included small farmers, students and youth, and indigenous people, where Anaquet Guy Ryder represented the Menominee Nation and shared some stories with us. We've had a small group subcommittee that has also been talking about plastics and education. We've been doing some discussion of mission and vision. We've tried to be aware of and support some of the indigenous concerns about extraction, and on 2 occasions, members of our group have made trips up to the Upper Wolf in support of the witness that's being done there for the potential new mine that's starting near Mole Lake. We've also been discussing Back 40. We've been supporting the climate task force here in Appleton that is trying to make some recommendations to our city council. And I'm a member of that group, but another member of our Esther group is an elected champion on the Appleton City Council, and she's been doing great stuff for us. Just this last week, the City Council did endorse the CCL platform, and we'll be advocating to the federal government. So we're one of a couple of dozen growing communities. I think that just happened in Wapaka this week too, or just recently. We also had a film event this past week that we co-sponsored with the Unitarian Church. And unfortunately, it was scheduled the same night that Joe Biden was giving his acceptance speech. So I think that held down the attendance. But we had a wonderful discussion that Guy Ryder led afterwards. For actually, it was a national audience. There were people from California, and Anaquet did just a beautiful job. He shared some of the same stories that he shared this morning, and I felt it was a privilege to get to hear them twice in 1 week, because I've been taking notes and continuing to try to learn from his examples. So we really appreciate all the people that have been involved, and that's my brief part, and I'll turn it over to Jessica to talk about some other things.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Terry. I think I just have a small kind of contribution to add to how we've kind of created the vision for our group and what that's looked like. So I came on the group in March as the co-chair with Terry. And one thing that I've really been interested in looking at is the difference between environmentalism and environmental justice, which at surface level, like, is complicated and can sometimes seem like the same thing. But it has been a personal struggle for me to really kind of nail down the differences. I've been a long time anti-single-use plastics advocate. I hate when people don't recycle right. I hate when I see plastic pollution, and that was kind of my driving force coming out of college a couple years ago. But being part of this task force and really being inspired to think about what does justice mean has changed that outlook just a little bit, as far as we need to be environmentalists for the sake of how it affects people around us. So what is happening in our communities? Where are the issues directly dealing with clean air and water and land? And, you know, Guy Ryder's beautifully to that of how we are all part of Mother Earth and we're connected and it affects us all. In environmental justice, typically, I think we've talked about correlates a lot with environmental racism of poor communities, marginalized communities of color, indigenous communities. But it's a bigger scope, and we're all involved in that as people who all live on the earth and who are all connected to the resources that we have to protect. So that's been a little bit of an interesting balance for us, just to kind of define what justice means for us and how that translates into action in our local community in a way that is appropriate and benefits the right people. So looking at how will decisions or who will decisions benefit, may they burden, which has been an interesting thought for me with the conversation of single-use plastics of, yes, I'd love to get rid of single-use plastics, but right now, without the access to alternatives in our local consumerism systems, that's going to burden people of poorer communities, just because thinking about single-use plastics creates more opportunity and accessibility and affordability for people who don't have the same income and disposable income as some communities who may be more affluent. So if we got rid of everything in single-use plastic packaging, that may directly affect the health and ability to access food for those marginalized in our communities. Even though the pollution is definitely a problem that we want to address, I think we just have to be very careful about how we make decisions and making sure that we're addressing all sides of it and making sure that there are solutions in place for we can get rid of single use, but how do we make sure that there's still equitable access to resources in a way that isn't going to disproportionately continue burdening populations? So that's just been an interesting take on some issues we've been looking at as a task force. And then, yeah, just to reiterate a lot of what Guy said of really thinking locally. A lot of the times we see the burden of plastic pollution in the oceans and how that's a really big issue, but we do also live right next door to the Great Lakes, and that's a super important and ecosystem that supports a lot of life in the local area, and equally burdened by plastic pollution and chemical pollution and just misuse and abuse of how we consume and treat it. And so thinking locally, and that's why we're here, right, as a state, what can we do to not get overwhelmed by the crisis the world is facing, but really be inspired to feel like we have the possibility to make change in our local area and what that looks like for the justice of our communities, Appleton, Eau Claire, across the state and beyond. So that's just a little 2 cents on some of the perspective we've been wrestling with and still growing, but really excited to see how this conversation continues in our ESTER meetings going forward.
Thank you, Jessica. And just to follow up on that, as I was putting this together, I find it, I'm struck by these different environmental groups. Why are they in sort of the more rural Wisconsin area? To me, environmental justice is about access of clean water, clean air, good food for everyone. And so that obviously is a concern also in the more urban areas. Environmental is just not for more rural areas, it's for urban areas too. So that is something, that wisdom too, we need to think about. Now, we do have some time left, and I just wanted to open it up for anybody who has any questions about any of the speakers or anything that's been presented so far. I guess you just raise your hand or speak up. Connie.
Yeah, I have a question about, the single-use plastic bags. And so when you go online and you read about, should we ban them, should we not ban them? I mean, you get 500 different posts about it. And I guess I'm wondering for you, it sounds like, Jessica, you've done a lot of studying on plastic. I read one article that said when they banned them in like San Francisco, they ended up having more problems because then people bought plastic bags because they needed them. And when they bought plastic bags that were actually thicker and worse. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? And like right now, you're not supposed to bring your own bags to the grocery store. So I ask for paper, which I hope is better, but sometimes I just really get confused. So.
Yeah, so the whole paper versus plastic is what we call a wicked problem of there are pros and cons to either side of the coin on that. So plastic, we see it as inherently evil because it's single use, it gets stuck in trees, it pollutes in the environment, but it is also very lightweight and very low cost to manufacture and ship, and does have benefits in that sense, whereas paper is more resource intensive. Obviously, it comes from trees, which can be sustainably sourced, but is still a resource getting cut down. And they are also require a lot of energy and water to produce and are heavier, so contribute to higher freight costs and use more fossil fuels in the transport. So I actually don't think paper is necessarily the better option. The other side of that coin then too is people like, oh, reusable bags. But if you buy another like synthetic reusable bag to make up for not using plastic bags, you need to use it at least 140 times or some like crazy number, I don't have it off the top of my head, to make up for the environmental impact of creating that synthetic bag in place of a plastic bag. And so then ideally in all of this, the like lesson is like, as an environmentalist, don't buy more things to make up for not using something else. We really need to use what we have. And so that's where I would encourage, don't go and buy a bunch of new Tupperware. Don't go and buy a bunch of new, water bottles or reusable shopping bags. Use what you have, reuse as much as you can. And that's where maybe you make t-shirt bags or, get them from Goodwill or like do something creative instead of consuming a new product, regardless of what it is. Really, the best choice is going to be to replace it with something you already have and be creative in that use. So yeah, kind of a tricky thing as far as banning plastics and the impact of that. I think it's a complicated conversation, but I think a bag fee is going to be more helpful than a bag ban, because Ireland has a good case study if anyone was curious and looking up their process, but they instilled a 10-cent plastic bag fee and like use went down by 80% in the first year, just because I think we need to have the education as a really important part of that conversation rather than just banning it and not having people understand. So in the meantime, educating, learning yourselves, helping your family and friends understand will make any future legislation more impactful, just because people will know why they're buying into something and why it's there, rather than just feeling like government is like stripping their rights or whatever. So that's a little bit of my 2 cents on that, Connie, if that's helpful to start the conversation.
Thank you.
I have a question about fossil fuels. I understand from some barrage of emails I've been getting the last few days that both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been very strong advocates to end support for fossil fuels, and that the DNC has removed that language from the DNC platform. Does anyone know more about that? I've just got a whole barrage of emails saying do something, but I really didn't know what it was I was supposed to do. Jessica?
Or anybody else have a?
Yeah, they actually removed the provision called for the end of subsidies and tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry. It was
from the platform, but not from Biden and Kamala Harris didn't end their support. Am I correct on that?
No, I don't think. I mean, yeah, I think you're correct in that. Yeah.
How do we get that changed?
Didn't understand.
Good question.
Probably too late. I mean, with the convention over, their platform is done. I don't think they reopen it. But I think the important thing is that the principals don't go by it. So, I mean, I think that's a fight we still need to fight. It's just kind of I think people need to deal with their own local Democratic Party and say, how did this go wrong?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also just kind of add some context for those people who maybe don't understand this concept. Like that's the biggest thing of why it's so hard for environmentalists to fight this issue is because the government subsidizes everything fossil fuel and doesn't really subsidize clean energy right now, reusable plastic, bioplastics, like all this stuff. Like we can't get a foothold in the market because it's so cheap to invest in fossil fuels and manufacture fossil fuels with government support. And so, plastics are made from oil and petroleum, which is contributing to the fossil fuel. And so by tackling that problem, it does contribute to trying to divest from fossil fuels in a way. And so, that's going to be a long fight and a big fight, but really looking at how can we start diverting some of that federal funding to support the projects that we really want. Locally, even too, I'm sure that we can find avenues for that. But there's just a big block where the money talks right now, which is hard to win, but definitely going to be ultimately what needs to happen as a long-term vision to really make progress in this.
Thank you.
I'd like to address a couple of things that have been brought up and then make a suggestion. One of the things that I've had and my wife has had reusable shopping bags for years. We've used them, I don't know how many times we use them, but at least once a week each one of us uses our renewable shopping bag or reusable shopping bags, and we've never had to replace them. So getting a reusable shopping bag and using it is not a bad idea. The other thing is, if you go through the self-checkout lane, which I have always resisted in the past, but now if I'm going to go and buy anything like vegetables or that in the store, I'm going to go into the store, put them in my cloth bags, take them to the self-checkout counter, and you're fine doing that. They will not say one word to you. They just can't touch your reusable bag. So if you do it yourself, you're good. Okay. But the most important thing I want to address here is how important it is. What Jessica just had to say about the power of money in this and the large organizations that control our government through that money. Man, if we don't find a way to put the environment ahead of money, we're sunk on this planet. And what that means to me is that each one of us and the organizations that we belong to need to become lobbyists ourselves. We need to be contacting our legislators, and the more of us that do it, the better. And one of my suggestion is that those of us in Naomi or in under the Wisdom umbrella, we have a number of different environmental or environmental justice task forces here. We need to work together. We need to find a way to speak to our legislators so that they hear our message, and they need to hear it over and over and over again. And it needs to be a respectful message. One of the things I really like about the Citizens Climate Lobby is that we deal with the legislators we have, not necessarily the legislators we want, but we deal with them with respect. And that gets us at the table, and it gets us a voice at the table. And I think that's kind of what I'm hoping that will come out of today's meeting, is that we will put together a way of communicating with our legislators with one voice. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Good idea.
Can I call on Larry Hoffman put a comment in the chat about those groups in Milwaukee. Can you say something about that, Larry? There is a lot of groups in Milwaukee working on issues.
Well, they are not affiliated with Wisdom.
Okay.
But they are important. The group called MECA, Milwaukee Equity and Climate Alliance, it formed about 3 years ago, gradually picking up member organizations, including Citizen Action, Sierra Club, Wisconsin Green Muslims, NAACP, and so forth. And I like to say we've got a two-sided coin, which is climate action in various ways, and the other side being jobs for minorities, well-paying jobs in the transition to sustainability. If you email me, and I left my email address in the chat, I can give you information about both MECA and the city-county task force that we helped to form that has been active lately.
Okay. And one of the groups you cite is Green Muslims, and Huda is on here. I think she's still on. Yeah, you are.
Yes. Yeah, this is Huda Al-Kaf, founder and director of Wisconsin Green Muslims. And I would also mention that many, many years ago, we formed, or we tried to form, an environmental justice group with MICA. I mean, I was a member of that. I remember we used to meet in MICA's office. And also, MICA was also part of, we had the Clean Valley Coalition that was many years ago. We were a large coalition, and MICA was part of that. We were working to convert the coal power plant in Milwaukee. We wanted to convert it into renewable, but we Energies, the investor-owned utility, just was so difficult to work with. So, but the conversion happened to gas, natural gas over there, which is now cleaner for the city, but still not the goal, the original goal that we wanted to. That's why the fight continues, and continues towards this Milwaukee Equity and Climate Alliance, which we wanted to move towards transition to cleaner environment and cleaner jobs, and more renewable access to everyone. So moving to 100% renewable energy, clean, pollution-free renewable energy. So just bringing in the environmental justice work that MICA was involved with many, many years ago, which I was part of as well. And yeah, there's so much work happening in Milwaukee. We have also the Milwaukee Environmental Consortium, which we are a member of, and regarding also food access, food security, regarding water equity. We work in different issues, transit, of course, with MICA's group there as well. So there are many issues in Milwaukee and statewide that we're working with.
Okay, thank you. We are nearing the end of our time here, and one of the goals of this is to learn about everything that's happening across the state, but also how do we begin to bring this work to collectively, to work on maybe excuse me, harnessing our collective power to work on state issues. So we can't solve that right now, but what we want to do is have a follow-up. And so we're proposing for anybody who's interested, we're going to meet on David Liner's birthday. And oh, that happens to be September 24. He has reminded me, I think, 5 times in the last 2 days. So September 24, if anybody is interested, I have posted my email here. You can contact me and I will make sure you are on that Zoom call for how do we begin to talk and cobble together something collectively. Everybody is doing their things separately, which is great, but there are some state and maybe national issues that we can work together. And we have not done that so much, but we want to begin to have that conversation. It could be on rights of nature. It could be on clean energy for all municipalities.
Amen.
All of those different things, okay? So okay. So you can email me and I'll make sure if you're interested in following up on this, and I will make sure you are on get an invite for that Zoom call. If you're able, it won't be the one and only. We'll have other ones, hopefully a regular call. David, is there any remarks you'd like to make?
No, I just that I really appreciate all of this, and that would be exciting. You know, it's again, there's a lot, all the great work that's going on. We hope that it all continues to go on, but it's also, can we find some points where we can actually multiply each other's work? And I love this idea, talking about the rights of nature being something that would actually be recognized in law. That would be a very cool thing for us as a statewide organization. We're all in on that, or that we're all in on restoring the mining moratorium.
Yeah.
That, you know, to restore the moratorium, that there would be no more sulfides in the whole state of Wisconsin. There's some things that we could kind of take on and make it kind of a signature thing that that we as a state, but it would be what people would want to come up with collectively. And again, it's not to supplant this great local work we're hearing about today, but it's to find another level that we can also add to it. So go ahead.
One other thing, we're talking about plastics. I don't know if how many of you know that there's this, the state legislator has put a ban on municipalities having the right to decide whether they're going to do single-use plastics or not. So there's talk of banning the ban. So, you know, there's numerous issues that we could work on. So I want to thank Casey and Adequate and Dan and Sue and Jessica and Terry for your participation in this.
Yeah, so round of applause for everybody here. Want you to do an evaluation just in the chat. Want you to put in a word, a phrase, a sentence, how you're feeling about this today, about what we've heard and seen and done. And again, really want to encourage folks to stay with this. As somebody also put, this is also very much tied. We have an election coming up, in case you haven't noticed. And it's going to be really important. Like, a lot of the things we're talking about today are in one way or another on the ballot. We really need to move. September 24th, the reason that we kept talking about that date, that actually happens to be exactly 40 days before Election Day. And Gamaliel, the national group we're part of, is going to do 40 days of prayer and reflection starting on September 24th, because we need to pray our way into this. We need all the help we can get, and we need to be as grounded as we can be in what matters. So join on the 24th. We can all pray together and actually start to talk about how we can work together. You'll be getting an email soon. We'll try and get you all of those links. You've got Bill's email address too, who's going to sort of be at the center of this for us in wisdom to kind of be holding everybody together. So I'm going to look quickly at...
So this is the last, David, right, of our Summer of Solidarity?
This is the last of the Summer of Solidarity, but at our staff meeting yesterday, we already had a proposal for our Autumn of Action. So it won't be every single Saturday, but stay tuned. There's going to be some things we're going to be trying to educate around, probably leading up to talking about the state budget. So all the issues related to the state budget, but that won't be until September. We get a couple weeks off. So a couple of evaluation words. Got inspired, charged, encouraged, inspired. encouraged, and challenged, motivated, united, love, opportunity, pray, and work. Thank you for the summer series, educational and motivating. Thank you for the Summer Solidarity Program. I've learned so much every Saturday. This has been the best. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Very informative and motivating. Thanks to all of you for your commitment to making our Earth even better. And thank you for all the Summer Solidarity gatherings. Peace, Sarah and Bud. Wonderful. Appreciate all of that. The video of this within a few days will be on the Wisdom website, and you basically, other than we're still trying to track down the first couple, but you basically have videos of all of these Summer of Solidarity sessions on the Wisdom website. So it's wisdomwisconsin.org. Easy enough, spell out Wisconsin. So www.wisdomwisconsin.org. You can see these, you can send them to your friends, and that sort of thing. So again, thank you all. Oh, last thing, is anybody still on from Waukesha? Anybody in southeastern Wisconsin? If you have a chance, there's a rally in Waukesha. Somebody have the address?
Yeah, 320, let's see, it's Cutler Park in front of the public library. Well, no, the Sophia event, I'm sorry, is 4 to 6 at Frame Park Amphitheater.
Okay, but the march starts at 2 o'clock where?
The march, it's going from 12 to 2, speakers at 1, march at 2. That's not Sophia sponsored, but we'll have appropriate speakers. That's Cutler Park, which is the library.
Okay, so check it out if you're in southern Wisconsin and can help them out. There we go. Jessica just put it on the in the chat. So if you're from southeastern Wisconsin and you're free this afternoon, we need to give our Sophia folks all the support we can here. Racial justice in Waukesha doesn't naturally get a big constituency, so let's go help them out.
One of the groups sponsoring that is Breaking the Silence in the Burbs, and another support group that will be there is the newly formed Catholics for Racial Justice and Black Lives Are Sacred, and they expect to be, people from those groups expect to be there too.
So hope to see some of you there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all again very much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be seeing you one place or another very soon, I hope.
Hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.